The rain had been falling for hours, turning the highway into a mirror of blurred lights and distant shadows. Master Sergeant Grant Holloway stood under the hospital awning, water dripping from his jacket as ambulances came and went. He had spent most of his life in war zones, but nothing had ever felt as helpless as this moment. Inside, machines kept his son alive. The sound of sirens still echoed in his head. The call had come less than an hour earlier. A hit and run, severe injuries, critical condition. Words that meant nothing until you saw the damage. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe the channel and let me know in the comments where are you watching from. It helps more than you know. Grant walked through the hospital doors again. The smell of antiseptic and fear wrapped around him. Nurses moved quickly, voices low, faces tight. At the end of the corridor, his wife sat with her head in her hands. She looked up when she saw him. "They said he's stable," she whispered. "But his legs..." Her voice broke. Grant knelt in front of her. "Tell me." The bones were crushed, both of them. "The doctors don't know if he'll ever walk again." The words hit harder than any explosion he had ever survived. "Who did it?" he asked. "They don't know." The driver ran. Grant stood slowly. "Someone always knows." He entered the room. His son lay in the bed, pale and motionless, tubes and monitors surrounding him. The strong, energetic boy who used to race him across the yard now looked small and fragile. Grant placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm here." The boy's eyes opened slightly. "Dad, I've got you. Will I play again?" Grant swallowed. Yes. It was a promise he did not know how to keep. Over the next few days, Grant learned everything. The accident happened outside a physical therapy center. Witnesses, security cameras, a black luxury car speeding away, and then the truth. The driver was the son of a federal judge. The case moved quickly, too quickly. Witnesses changed statements. Footage disappeared. Police reports softened. Charges were reduced, then dismissed. Grant stood in the courtroom as the judge declared there was insufficient evidence. The driver smirked. Grant's wife gripped his hand. "We'll appeal." Grant stared at the young man. The arrogance, the certainty that nothing could touch him. "No," Grant said quietly. "What?" "This isn't over." Weeks passed. His son struggled through therapy, pain etched into every movement. Nights were the worst. The boy thought his parents were asleep when he cried. One evening, Grant found him staring at the ceiling. "I heard them," his son said. "Heard who?" "The doctors. They said I might never walk again." Grant sat beside him. "They don't know everything." "Dad, I saw the car. He was drunk." Grant's chest tightened. "You're sure?" "Yes." "Why didn't you say anything in court?" The boy hesitated. "Because the man came to see me." "What man?" "He said if I talked, something worse would happen." Grant's hands curled into fists. "Did you tell Mom?" "No. I didn't want her to worry." Grant stood and walked out of the room before his son could see the storm in his eyes. That night he called someone he had not spoken to in years. A former commander. "I need a favor." "You're still active, Grant. Be careful what you ask." "I need information." "Off the record." Silence. "What kind?" "The kind that ruins powerful people." Over the next week, pieces began to fall into place. The judge was not just corrupt, he was connected. Money laundering, political favors, hidden offshore accounts, a network built over decades. And his son? A liability. Grant sat alone in the dark living room studying the files. This was not about revenge. This was about balance. His wife found him there. "You're planning something." "Yes." "You'll lose your career. I might lose more if I don't." She hesitated. "I'm scared, so am I." "What will you do?" Grant looked at her. "What I was trained to do." Outside, the rain stopped. The world felt quiet again. But inside Grant Holloway, a war had begun. And the judge who thought he controlled the system had no idea he had just declared it. The first thing Grant Holloway did was disappear. Not physically. He still went to the base, still showed up to briefings, still trained with his unit. but mentally he moved somewhere else, somewhere colder, more precise, the same place he went before every mission, because this time the target was not in a foreign country, it was in his own city. 3 weeks after the courtroom, Grant stood on a rooftop across from a luxury condominium overlooking the river. The night was clear, the air sharp, the city alive with movement. Through binoculars he watched the building's entrance. Marcus Dane stepped beside him, former Special Operations, now embedded in a quiet intelligence role. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked. "No. That's not reassuring, it's not supposed to be." Marcus handed him a small earpiece. "Our friend inside Military Legal confirmed something. The judge has buried at least 5 cases like this over the years." Grant's jaw tightened. "Children?" "2. Silence settled. Grant lowered the binoculars. "And his son?" "Multiple arrests. All erased." Grant looked back toward the building. "That ends now." Marcus exhaled. "You realize this could destroy your career. My son's future is already destroyed." They watched as a black SUV pulled into the underground garage. "That's him," Marcus said. Grant memorized the driver, the gait, the careless confidence. "This isn't just about punishment," Grant said. "It has to be airtight. No bruises, no evidence. Everything legal." Marcus raised an eyebrow.
"You're thinking bigger. I'm thinking permanent." Over the next days, Grant built the operation, surveillance, patterns, weaknesses. The judge's son lived recklessly. Nightclubs, expensive parties, alcohol, no discipline, but the judge, careful, controlled, protected. Grant studied both. He found something interesting. The judge was under quiet investigation by a small unit within military intelligence. Off the books.
Political corruption tied to defense contracts. Grant smiled for the first time since the accident. Now there was leverage. Back home, his son struggled through physical therapy. One afternoon, Grant arrived early and watched from the doorway as the boy tried to stand. His legs trembled violently. Sweat covered his face. Again, the therapist said. The boy shook his head. "I can't." "You can." "I can't." He collapsed back into the chair, tears in his eyes. Grant stepped forward. "You don't quit," he said. His son looked up. "What if this is my life now?" Grant crouched beside him. "Then we fight anyway. Against what?" Grant's voice was calm. "Against anyone who tries to take your future." The boy studied him. "You're going after him, yes. Will it fix me?" Grant paused. "No, but it will stop him from hurting anyone else." The boy nodded slowly. "Then do it." That night, Grant and Marcus met again. "We move soon," Grant said. "How?" "The son first." Marcus crossed his arms. "You want to break him, I want him afraid. And the judge?" "He watches." Marcus smirked. "Psychological warfare," Grant nodded. "He believes he's untouchable. We take that away." They waited for the right night. It came during a private party at a lake house outside the city. Music, alcohol, security relaxed. Grant and Marcus approached through the woods. Inside, the judge's son laughed loudly, surrounded by friends. Grant watched from the shadows. "That's the man who destroyed my son's legs." Marcus whispered, "Ready?" Grant nodded. The power cut. Darkness, panic. Grant moved fast. The judge's son never saw him. One precise strike. Silence. Another. The body collapsed. Marcus secured the exits. They dragged him outside into the cold night air. When he woke, he was bound to a chair in an abandoned boathouse. Fear replaced arrogance. "Who are you?" he demanded. Grant stepped forward. The young man's eyes widened. "You?" "Yes. You can't do this. You said that in court." The man struggled. "My father will destroy you." Grant leaned closer. "Your father is about to lose everything. What do you want?" "The truth. I didn't mean to hit him. You ran. I panicked. You threatened my son." "Silence." Grant's voice turned colder. "Now you will confess." The man hesitated. Marcus showed him the files. Evidence. Corruption. Crimes. "We don't need you," Marcus said. "But your father does." The man broke. He confessed everything. The hit and run, the threats, the cover-up. Grant recorded every word. When it was over, the young man sat shaking. "What happens now?" Grant looked at him. "You face consequences." Marcus leaned in. But first you watch. The next morning the judge received a package. Inside was a video and a message. You protected him. Now you answer. Across the city, fear spread. For the first time in decades, the judge realized something. He was no longer in control, and the war had only just begun. The judge did not sleep that night. Every shadow in his house felt alive. Every sound echoed louder than it should. The video played over and over in his mind. His son tied to a chair, confessing everything in a broken voice. The arrogance gone, the fear real. Judge Nathaniel Prescott had spent his entire life controlling outcomes. Courtrooms, politicians, investigations. He knew how systems worked, how power moved. But this was different. This was personal. Across the city, Grant Holloway watched the lights turn on in the Prescott mansion from a distance. He sat in a parked car, silent, patient. Marcus sat beside him, studying the house through night optics. You shook him, Marcus said. That was the goal. And the son? Safe. For now, Marcus nodded. You're not going to kill him, no. You want the father, I want the system he built. The sun rose slowly, and with it came the next phase. Grant had already moved the young man to a secure location, monitored and guarded. Every confession was backed by evidence Marcus had gathered. Bank transfers, witness intimidation, destroyed files. It was enough to bury the judge for life. But Grant knew powerful men did not fall easily. They fought. By mid-morning, the first move came. 2 black SUVs arrived at Grant's house, military police. His wife called him immediately. They're here. Grant's expression hardened. Stay calm, say nothing. They want to question you, I'll handle it. He arrived within minutes. The officers stood waiting. Master Sergeant Holloway, one of them said. We need to ask you a few questions. Grant nodded. Of course. They stepped aside. Where were you last night? Training. With who? Grant named 3 people, all verified. The officer studied him. We received an anonymous tip. Grant met his gaze. About what? That you may be involved in a kidnapping. Grant remained calm. Do you have proof? No. Then we're done. The officers left. Marcus appeared from the garage. The judge is panicking. Good. He's trying to discredit you. Grant watched the vehicles disappear. He'll escalate. He already has. Internal Affairs opened an inquiry. Grant smiled slightly. Let them, Marcus frowned. You're enjoying this. I'm winning. Later that day, Grant met with Colonel Benjamin Hart in a secure office on base. You're playing a dangerous game, the colonel said. I know. You kidnapped a civilian. I detained a criminal. That's not your authority. Grant placed the evidence on the desk. Corruption, obstruction, witness intimidation, connections to defense contracts. He interfered with military cases. The colonel reviewed the files. This is serious. It's bigger than one judge. Colonel Hart leaned back. What do you want? A tribunal for a civilian? For someone who interfered with military justice and national security? The colonel thought for a long moment. If we do this, it becomes a war. It already is. That evening, the judge made his next move. He went public. A press conference. I am the victim of a conspiracy, Prescott declared. A dangerous soldier has abducted my son and is attempting to manipulate the legal system. Grant watched the broadcast with Marcus. He's bold, Marcus said. He's desperate. Public opinion is shifting. Grant nodded. Then we shifted back. They released a portion of the confession. Not all of it. Just enough. The media exploded. Questions spread. Protests formed. The judge's allies began to distance themselves. But Grant knew this was not over. Late that night, his secure phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Master Sergeant, the voice said. Cold. Controlled. Prescott. You've made a mistake, the judge said. No, Grant replied. You did. You think this ends with a tribunal? It ends with accountability. You don't understand the people you're dealing with. Grant's voice turned quiet. I understand perfectly. There was a pause. You have my son. Yes, if anything happens to him, He will face justice, something your victims never had. The judge's voice hardened. This will destroy your family. Grant looked toward the hallway where his wife and son slept. They already tried. The line went dead. Marcus leaned against the wall. He's going to strike back. Grant nodded. Good. Why? Because when he does, he'll expose the rest of his network. Marcus studied him. You're baiting him. Yes. And if it works? Grant's expression became colder than ever. Then we take everything. Because the man who believed he controlled justice was about to discover what real accountability looked like. The strike came sooner than Grant expected. It was just after midnight when the alarms triggered. A sharp electronic tone cut through the silence of the house. Grant was already awake. Years in special operations had trained his body to rest lightly, to respond instantly. He was moving before his wife even sat up. "Stay here," he whispered. He stepped into the hallway, every sense alert. The security system was military-grade, installed by Marcus the day after the accident. Motion sensors, cameras, redundancies. Nothing happened inside without warning. Marcus's voice came through the earpiece. 2 vehicles outside, no plates. 4 men moving toward the back entrance. Grant's jaw tightened. "Armed?" "Yes." "Let them in what?" "I want them inside." There was a pause. Then Marcus understood. Grant moved silently toward the rear of the house. The intruders breached the door within seconds. Professional but not special operations. Private contractors. They swept the rooms quickly. They never saw Grant. The first man went down without a sound. The second followed. The other 2 reacted, but Marcus cut them off from the front. Within minutes, the house was silent again. Grant stood over the last man, pressing a blade lightly against his throat. "Who sent you?" The man hesitated. Grant increased the pressure. "The judge," he whispered. "Orders? Bring you alive. Kill anyone else." Grant's eyes hardened. Marcus secured the man. "This just escalated." Grant nodded. "Exactly what I needed." They transported the surviving attacker to the same secure location where the judge's son was being held. When the contractor saw the young man sitting in the chair, his confidence shattered. "You're finished," the contractor said. "No," Grant replied. "You are." Over the next hours, the story unraveled. The judge had authorized illegal use of private military contractors. He had also accessed classified databases through corrupt officials. Worse, he had interfered with military investigations tied to defense contracts. Marcus leaned back after reviewing the statement. "This is bigger than we thought," Grant nodded. "It always was." The next morning, Colonel Hart called. "You have something for me?" "Yes." They met in a secure conference room. Grant presented everything. The colonel's expression grew darker with every page. "This crosses into national security, that's the point." Colonel Hart stood. "We're convening a military tribunal." Grant exhaled slowly. "But," the colonel continued, "you are also under investigation. I expected that. You understand what this means?" "Yes." "You could lose everything." Grant thought of his son learning to walk again step by painful step. "I already did." The tribunal was scheduled within days. The media storm intensified. Evidence leaked in controlled waves. Public opinion shifted further. The judge's allies abandoned him completely, but Prescott made one final move. He fled. Marcus burst into Grant's office. "He's gone. Private jet. Destination unknown." Grant stood immediately. "He won't run far. How do you know?" "Because men like him need control. He will try to negotiate." They tracked financial movements, communications, safe houses. The trail led to a remote compound in the mountains of Montana. Grant and Marcus arrived at night. The compound was heavily guarded but disorganized. Prescott had money, not discipline. Grant moved with precision, neutralizing guards silently. Marcus secured the perimeter. Inside the main house, Prescott waited. He looked exhausted, older. Fear had finally replaced arrogance. "You've ruined everything," Prescott said. "You did that yourself. You think you've won?" This isn't about winning. The judge laughed bitterly. You're no better than me. You kidnapped my son. You used violence. Grant stepped closer. The difference is accountability. You want justice? Then kill me. No. Prescott's eyes narrowed. Why? Because prison is worse. You think they will convict me? Grant showed him the evidence. The judge's confidence collapsed. This is impossible, no, Grant said. It's inevitable. Marcus secured him. As they escorted Prescott out, the judge whispered, You don't understand. There are others. Grant paused. I know, because this was never about one corrupt man. It was about the system that protected him, and that system was already falling apart. But the final stage had not yet begun, and when it did, there would be no escape. The tribunal was unlike anything the public had ever seen. It took place inside a secured military facility in Virginia, far from cameras and politics. But the world still watched. News outlets reported every confirmed detail: the corruption, the cover-ups, the private contractors, the hit and run that had destroyed a child's future. Grant Holloway stood in uniform at the back of the chamber, his posture rigid, his expression unreadable. For the first time since the accident, he was no longer the hunter. He was simply a witness. Across the room, Nathaniel Prescott sat in restraints, his once perfect composure shattered. The man who had dominated courtrooms for decades now avoided eye contact. His son sat beside him, pale and broken, no longer the arrogant figure who had smirked in court months earlier. The charges were extensive: obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, abuse of authority, illegal use of private military contractors, interference in military investigations, conspiracy tied to national security. Each count was supported by evidence, every lie dismantled. Prescott's legal team tried to delay, to discredit, to twist the narrative, but the proof was overwhelming. The confession, the contractor testimony, financial trails, intelligence reports. Days passed. The tribunal delivered its decision. Prescott was stripped of his authority and handed over for federal prosecution, with multiple life sentences expected. His son faced criminal charges without immunity or protection. The moment the ruling was announced, a quiet wave of relief moved through the room. Grant did not react. He simply closed his eyes. Marcus stood beside him. It's done. Yes, you won. Grant shook his head. No one wins in situations like this. Outside the facility, reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. The story had become a symbol, a rare moment when power did not protect corruption. But Grant avoided the spotlight. He returned home. The house felt different now, lighter. His son was waiting in the living room, sitting upright with braces on both legs. You're back, the boy said. I told you I would be. Did it work? Grant nodded. They'll never hurt anyone again. The boy studied him. Was it worth it? Grant thought for a moment. I don't know, but you'd do it again? Yes, his son smiled slightly. Good. Months passed. Physical therapy became routine. The progress was slow but steady. Every step was a battle, but the determination in the boy's eyes never faded. One afternoon, Grant stood beside the parallel bars as his son pushed himself forward. You're getting stronger, Grant said. I have to. Why? So I can run again. Grant felt something tighten in his chest. You will. The boy took another step, then another. Claire stood in the doorway, tears in her eyes. He's doing it, she whispered. Grant nodded. Later that evening, the family sat together for the first time in months without tension. Laughter returned. Hope followed. Grant stepped outside onto the porch. Marcus joined him. What now? Marcus asked. Grant looked out at the quiet neighborhood. I go back to work. You're still active? Yes. They didn't discharge you. No. Marcus smirked. You have powerful friends. Grant allowed himself a small smile. You earned it. Grant thought of everything that had happened. The pain, the anger, the darkness he had walked through. This was never about revenge, he said. What was it about? Protection. Marcus nodded. That's why you were always the best. Grant looked at the stars. The world had not changed. Corruption still existed, evil still thrived, but sometimes justice broke through. And that was enough. Inside, his son called for him. Grant turned and walked back into the house. Because the war he fought now was different. It was not about destroying enemies. It was about building a future where his son could stand tall again, and where power would never again silence the truth. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.